What is up, everyone? So, no gameplay today because we are talking about an upcoming event that I'm taking part in. I'm going to be in the early access event for the new Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth set, which is coming out. It's not standard legal, it's only legal in Alchemy and Historic. And I'm going to be over on Twitch streaming that, and eventually I'll put those videos up on YouTube. But that's going to be on June 16th from 5 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Eastern to 12 p.m. Central Time, or 1 p.m. Eastern. And basically, that's because I'm living in Japan, and so that's the times that I'm able to do it. But I'm sure some people are up and around at that time, or maybe can take their lunch break off to watch it. Who knows? But yeah, if you want to catch me with some sweet brews, check me out at that time. And then for today, we're going to go through some of the cards I think are the best in the set. There are a lot, so we're going to try to speed through this as quickly as possible. And then I'll post also my top 10 list tomorrow. And again, this is going to be for Alchemy or Historic, so it's going to be a little bit different than normal. So the power level of cards has to be higher for them to see play. Alrighty then, let's get into it. So I'm just gonna read the card and then briefly give a small explanation why I think the card could see some play in Alchemy or Historic. I'm mostly focusing on Historic because that's the format I play on MTG Arena the most that would be able to use these cards. Of course, there's Explorer and things like that, and Modern and Legacy, but that's not on Arena. So yeah, I'm going to be focusing on those two. All right, first we got Bilbo's Ring. It's a 3-mana enchantment that gives your creature hexproof and can't be blocked as long as it's your turn. And whenever a creature attacks alone, draw a card and lose a life. So there's right now a bunch of equipment decks, Hammer Time decks, and things like that in Historic. And the reason why the Bant one is so good is because they have a creature which has hexproof. So I think maybe there's some world where this gets used and they cheat it out onto one of those creatures so that it's destroying them a bunch of cards. But maybe you don't need it because you're just going to win the game anyway. All right, next one. Bill Fernie Bree Swindler. So this is a 2-mana 2/1 that whenever it's blocked, you get some effect. Most of the time, it's just going to be that first line, create a treasure token. So not sure if it's good enough, but 2 mana, potentially when it's blocked, you get a treasure token. Could be good enough to see some sort of play in some deck. But yeah, not sure about that one. Next one, Born Upon a Wind. So 2 mana, you may cast spells that have this turn as though they have flash and draw a card. I think this one is really powerful. I mean, it's just a cantrip, but it also lets you play anything at flash speed. You can play a planeswalker at flash speed, an enchantment at flash speed. So I think there's a lot of really broken things you could do with this card and really surprise your opponent with what you can play. All right, Boromir, Warden of the Tower. This is a 3-mana human soldier, so it is a soldier. We have a lot of soldiers in Standard, and Alchemy is the same cards as Standard, so makes sense that this might see some play. And it stops people from doing stuff that they didn't spend mana on, which is useful. And then also you can sacrifice it to give your creatures indestructible, which we've seen in the past is pretty good. So I think there's some world where this could see play in a soldier's deck. Okay, Council of Deliberation, 2-mana, draw a card, and whenever you scry, if you control an island, you may exile Council Deliberation from a graveyard and draw a card. So this is a 2-mana draw 2 in some sort of deck that has scry. So it just says if you control an island, so it's not that hard to get. You would need a really specific deck, maybe a blue-white control deck. But yeah, there's some world where this could be good. Delighted Halfling is green for a 1/2 that taps for a colorless mana. And whenever you add, you can also add 1 mana of any color and use it to cast a legendary spell. Doesn't have to be creature, but spell. And that spell can't be countered. 1-mana Minodorks are great. Llanowar Elves is great. This is basically a legendary Llanowar Elf, so it is also great. Flowering of the White Tree. This is 2 white pips, and it's an enchantment, legendary enchantment. And legendary creatures you control get +2/+1 and have ward 1, which is pretty insane. Really cheap anthem that is better than a normal Anthem, so that's insane. And then if they're non-legendary creatures, they still get an Anthem. So either way, gonna be great in a mono white deck. All right, Forge a new 2 and a white. This is something that's gonna slot right into the Hammer Time decks, especially in Historic, because I don't think they have as many pieces as the like the Pioneer version does. I could be wrong about that. But basically, you get to equip for free every turn, even on your opponent's turn at instant speed. So yeah, it's pretty bonkers. Okay, Frodo Determined Hero. This is 1 and a white for a 2/2. And whenever Frodo Determined Hero enters the battlefield or attacks, you may attach target equipment you control with mana value 2 or 3 to Frodo. Ah, it doesn't say mana value 1. I thought it was 3 or less, to be honest. Okay, well that makes it a little bit worse, but maybe there's some good 2 and 3 mana equipments that you could make this work well for. And it also prevents all damage as long as it's your turn. So yeah, similar to Hammer Time deck, but if you can't use Hammer, might not be good enough. Okay, Gandalf, Friend of the Shire, 3 and a blue. It's a 2/4 legendary creature with flash, and you may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. Again, casting things at flash speed is really, really powerful, and this is 4 mana, so a little bit slow, but it could still be good in some sort of control deck that wants to cast its sorceries at instant speed. And whenever the ring tempts you, you can also draw some cards sometimes. So if you make some sort of Lord of the Rings style deck with sorceries, then it could be good. I don't know. The top part of the card is the better part. Next one, Gandalf the White, 5 mana. Flash, you may cast legendary spells and artifacts as though they had flash. If a legendary permanent or an artifact enters the battlefield or leaves the battlefield causes a triggered ability, you can trigger that ability an additional time. So it's a Panharmonicon that also lets you cast legendary spells and artifacts at flash speed. Seems pretty great. Some sort of legendary creature deck probably would want this, or even an artifact thing. And getting some ETBs with that or death triggers would be insane. So yeah, there's some deck that wants this. It seems pretty good. Goldberry River Daughter, 1 and a blue for a 1/3. Move a counter of each kind to Goldberry if you tap it, or blue and a tap. Move 1 or more counters from Goldberry to another permanent, and you draw a card. So I think this could fit in some sort of deck, which is synergizing around like +1/+1 counters, or something along that line. And you can just have other cards that put the counters onto this, and then just each turn you're tapping and drawing a card. Though it does cost 1 mana to do that, so might be too slow. Next one, Golem's Bite. This is a black for -2/2. We've seen this effect many times before. The only upside is that it has the extra ability, 3 and a black, exile it from your graveyard, and the ring tempts you. So this is on the cusp of being playable. I'm not sure. This figure, the -2/2 effect, was always right on the cusp of being good enough. It's just a little bit too weak. We got Fatal Push, which is a little bit better. So we'll have to see if the ring tempting you is worth it. Otherwise, this might not see any play. Next one, Golem Scheming Guide. Sorry, Golem. I don't know why I said Golem. Golem. Whenever Golem attacks, look at the top 2 cards, put them back in any order. You choose a land or non-land. An opponent guesses if the top card is what you revealed, and so they can say, are you lying? Or are you telling the truth? And then you reveal it. If it's right, then you remove Golem from combat. Otherwise, you draw a card and it can't be blocked. So probably you'll want to say it's, I don't know, if it's a non-land, you'll want to say it's a non-land, because then actually, do you get to still draw the card either way? Yeah, you do. Okay. So I don't know. You just gotta bluff. So it's 50-50 chance, I guess, kind of, that you get the draw and can be blocked. I don't know. It seems like it could be interesting in some sort of deck. Legolas, Master Archer, 1 green. It's a 1/4 with reach. Whenever you cast a spell that targets Legolas, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And whenever you cast a spell that targets a creature you don't control, Legolas deals damage equal to its power up to one other target creature. So I think what you want to do is get Legolas down and then use some fight spells, and that's gonna like buff Legolas to a 2/5 for example, and then maybe you fight something and kill it, and then you also get this triggered ability which kills another creature, so you can kind of get a 2-for-1 every time you do a fight spell. So, and your Legolas is going to get bigger and bigger. So this one seems quite good, I would say, as long as it has the right supporting cards. Lobelia Sackville Baggins, 2 and a black. This is a flash 2/3 with menace. Whenever it enters the battlefield, exile target creature from opponent's graveyard that was put there this turn. So that's makes it a little bit trickier. But then you create X treasure tokens, where X is the exiled creature card's power. I could see this in some sort of control deck where you kill something, like kill Shieldred, you cast this, you get 4 treasure tokens. Maybe something like that would be pretty powerful. Ramping from 4 or 5 to 9 or 10 could be really good. So yeah, maybe some giant black based spell deck. All right, long list of Ents. This is 1 green for a saga with 6 chapters. Sorry, 6 chapters, and you basically have to choose a different creature type each turn, and then when you cast a creature with that type, then you put a +1/+1 counter on it. So yeah, basically you just want some sort of like mono green deck that has a bunch of different creature types. And the first turn you play this, you pick just a random one you don't have, and then the next turn you pick whatever you're gonna cast. So instead of having a 1-drop, you're just gonna make every other card in your deck get +1/+1 counters. Which I think should be good enough. I mean, hopefully you win by turn 6. But if not, yeah, you're still gonna get really huge creatures every turn. All right, Lorien revealed 3 and a blue, draw 3 cards. But it has Island Cycling 1, which is very cheap for that effect. So maybe a control deck wants this, or especially like a mono blue deck would probably want something like this. Lost to Legend, white, put target non-land historic permanent into its owner's library 4 from the top. This will depend on the meta. If there's a lot of legends going around, then this could see play, or a lot of like sagas or planeswalkers. Definitely a way for maybe a sideboard card for like a soldier's or white aggressive deck to deal with planeswalkers. Rally at the Hornburg, 1 and a red. This one seems crazy to me. Grade 2, 1/1 white human soldier tokens, and then humans you control get haste. So this reminds me of Historic Reinforcements, which was create 2 tokens, all your creatures get +1/+1 and haste. That card was insane. Saw a lot of play, even saw play in older formats. Though it's gotten a little bit worse now, but having that almost the same effect at 2 mana is pretty seriously good. And on turn 4, you could drop another card and then drop this, and then all your stuff will have haste. So yeah, seems quite good. And humans is the thing. So yeah. Next one, Mary Esquire of Rohan. So this is a 2/2 with haste for a red and a white. Mary Esquire of Rohan has first strike as long as it's equipped, so it wants to be in like the red-white hammer deck. And then whenever you attack, and with Mary and another legendary creature, draw a card. So the Hammer Time deck often, not always, but often has legendary creatures. So especially the red-white one, I think there's a pretty good chance you could get a red-white legendary Hammer Time deck that would want this and would get some good benefit from it. Horn of the Mark, 2 mana legendary artifact that whenever you 2 or more creatures you control attack, you draw the top. You look at the top 5 of your library and you reveal a creature card and put it in your hand. This is okay, but it reminds me of there's this other horn card from maybe Ravnica that people were using in like goblin decks to draw you a bunch of goblin cards. Because you often have a lot of goblins going wide and you attack in and you got to look at the top 5 or something like that and draw a goblin card. So this is pretty similar, and yeah, I think it could be good in like elves or goblins, basically. All right, Lambus spread. I'm not always sure how to say that, but it's 2 mana. It's a kind of like an egg card. It draws a card when it comes down. It actually scries 1 and draws, so it's even better. And then for 2 and a tap, you can sacrifice it and gain 3 life. And when you do, it goes, instead of going to your graveyard, it is put into your library, shuffled into your library. So It helps, I guess, against mill, and it also means that you can have these like cycle effects later on, life gain effects later on. So it's kind of nice. It's probably like the nicest egg type effect we've seen. So yeah, seems like it would have a home somewhere. Sting, the Glinting Dagger, 2 mana. Equipped creature has +1/+1 and haste, and untaps at the beginning of combat, of each combat. And then equipped creature has first strike as long as it's blocked by a goblin or orc. We don't care about that part. Equip cost is 2. So I included this because I think there's probably some sort of untapped shenanigans you could do where you have a creature with like a ping ability, and then you ping it, deal 1 damage, and then or I don't know, do something with that, and then tap, and then at the beginning of combat it untaps. You get to use the activated ability again, and then even on the opponent's turn it would untap, and you could use it again. So if you had some tap activated ability, you can essentially do it 3 times a turn. Seems pretty nice. Also, haste means that you can activate things right away. All right, Stone of Erich. I'm not sure how to say this one. It's a 1 mana legendary artifact. If a creature opponent controls would die, exile it. Nice. We haven't had this at a cheap cost, so that's really nice. And then 2 and a tap, sacrifice it, exile their target player's graveyard, and draw a card. So also another graveyard hate. Very, very sweet. I think this is something Historic really wanted against all the like I don't know, like there's all these reanimator decks, and there's all these Greasefang. That's what I'm trying to think of. Greasefang decks. Recently people have not been playing that as much, but just having this will be nice so that creatures that die stay dead, and you can eventually exile stuff in a pinch. So I think it's good. Very good. Birthday Escape, 1 blue, draw a card, the ring tempts you. Um, might not be good enough. Depends on if this ring tempting you thing is any good or not, but it's a cantrip, which cantrips are usually pretty nice. Next one, Dawn of a New Age, 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, put a hope counter on it for each creature you control. So maybe you want this in some sort of mono white aggro deck. You have 2 or 3 or 4 creatures on the battlefield. You put that many counters on here. Then at the end step, you remove a counter and you draw a card. So you get 1 immediately. And then when it has nothing left, you gain 4 life. So maybe the green-white life game deck could want this. It often goes pretty wide. You gain the life, you draw cards. Sounds good. Glorious Gale, counter target creature spell. If it was a legendary spell, the ring tempts you. Um, it's just a better Essence Scatter, basically. So yeah, if you want Essence Scatter, you might want that one. Lost Island Calling. This is a 2 mana enchantment. Whenever you scry, put a verse counter on Lost Isle Calling. And then for 6 mana, you exile it and you draw a card for each verse counter on it. If you had 7 or more, you take an extra turn. This is cool because it kind of spawns its own deck. If you can make a scry deck work in Historic, then this could be very cool. I don't know if there's enough cards in Historic that scry that are good to really make it work, but we do have Opt, which is something. So yeah, I this might be something I build around. This looks really cool to me. Gorbag of Venus Morgul, 1 and a black. It's an orc soldier, 2/2. Whenever a goblin or orc you control deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. When you do, choose one, draw a card, or create a treasure. So I think this could go in the red-black goblins deck because you often go wide with like the Franco and the goblin tokens that you get from that. So you could sack all of those, draw cards, try to find your yeah, I can't remember. Muxus, yeah. And if not, you could make some treasures to also cast your Muxus if you already have it in your hand. So I think it could be good. It's not a goblin, but it enables all your goblins, so it seems decent. Many Partings is a green. Search your library for a basic land, so it's not dead. It always trades for something. And then it creates a food. So I think there's a lot of these like token decks or artifact decks that want stuff like this. So I think that would fit in that. It would be pretty good in that. So yeah, someone will break that at some point. Maybe in Legacy, who knows. Minas Tirith enters battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. Add a white. And for 1 and a white and a tap, draw a card. Activate only if you attack with 2 or more creatures. So white aggressive deck wants this to draw free cards. So that seems bonkers, and I don't really like that. All right. Mortar Muster, 1 and a black. You draw a card. You lose 1 life. Amass Orc 1 seems good. It's a black cantrip, which is pretty rare. And then you make a 1/1, so it's also a creature. Crazy. Red for a Goblin Warrior, 1/1 with double strike. Whenever a Goblin or Orc you control deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play it this turn. So this one, if this actually connects, will draw you 2 cards. I mean, exile the top 2 cards. And you can play as many as you want. So that seems pretty good. That's going to be played in Goblins. Mount Doom. Pay 1 life for a red or black, and then for 1 black red, tap Mount Doom deals 1 damage to each opponent, and then 5 black and a red, sacrifice Mount Doom and a legendary artifact, and choose 2 creatures, and then destroy the rest. So board wipe, except for you get to keep 2 of your creatures on a land, and also a win con on a land. So I think some control deck might actually want this just to have it as a really slow win con, but maybe it's too slow. Still, it's crazy that it's on a land. Nasty End, 1 and a black instant. Whenever, as an additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature and draw 2 cards. If the creature was legendary, draw 3 cards instead. So yeah, we've seen this effect before, like Village Rites or things like that, but not with draw 3 cards. So this is probably gonna see play somewhere. Seems pretty good. You gotta have some legendary creature that you're willing to sacrifice, but otherwise seems pretty good. 1 ring to rule them all. 2 and a black. This is maybe one of the best sagas in the set. Ring tempts you, and then each player mills cards equal to the ring bearer's power. So you might do nothing if you have no creatures. Hopefully you have a creature. Then the next phase, destroy all non-legendary creatures. So it's a board wipe for non-legendaries. So you want to have legendaries, then sweep the board for non-legendaries. Then each opponent loses 1 life for each creature card in that player's graveyard. So could be kind of a win con there as well if you have some sort of mill going on. Maybe rogues would want this or something, some sort of legendary rogues. I don't know, but it's a cool card. It's got some good power, and it's a sweeper. Orcish Bowmasters, 1 and a black. It's a 1/1 flash. When it enters the battlefield, and whenever an opponent draws a card, except for the first one they draw, then it deals 1 damage to any target, and you amass Orcs 1. So this is good for Historic because a lot of things have 1 toughness. I mean, not that many, but there's some. So potentially you could cast it in and kill something. Any target, you can go face. Whenever they draw cards, you're going to ping more things. So if they use like Faithful Saluting, you're going to ping 3 things. So yeah, could be a pretty good way to stop, like, Is It Phoenix? Maybe. Press the enemy 2 and a blue, return target spell or non-land permanent an opponent controls to their owner's hand. Then you cast an instant or sorcery with equal or lesser mana value from your hand without paying its mana cost. This is pretty nice. Is it too slow? I'm not sure. Historic also, everything is really cheap, but it would be good against those reanimator decks when they cast like the big 5 mana or 7 mana cards, or you know, like dragons or whatever they're doing. And so you can bounce it back to their hand, and then you get to cast something really big from your hand. I think a control deck might want this. Maybe you could even just cast like a Narset or something would be nice. Equal or lesser, yeah. So you bounce something 3 mana, you get to play a Narset. Sounds pretty good. Might have to try that. Rangers Firebrand. This is a shock that has the slightly better ability than a shock. So 2 damage to any target, and the ring tempts you. It is sorcery speed though. That's the downside. So if the ring tempting you is worth it, then this is a good card. Reprieve, 1 and a white instant. Return target spell to its owner's hand and draw a card. So this is a remand in white. They talked about how they wanted to make a remand in white for some reason. Because we want to give white everything. I don't know why. Honestly, it's gonna make blue-white control better, so that's nice. We wanted Remand in Historic, so we kind of got it in Historic, kind of. I guess I'll take it. Next one, Rivendale. It's tapped unless you have a legendary creature, or taps for a blue. And then 2 and a blue, scry 2, activate only if you have a legendary creature. So, some sort of legendary creature-based control deck. Would love to have this. Maybe also a mono blue type, like tempo-y type deck, but needs to have legendary creatures, so not sure. But the ability itself is very good. Scry 2 is quite good. Samwise, the Stoutheart, 1 and a white, flash 2/1. Enters the battlefield, return a permanent to from your graveyard that was put there this turn, and put it to your hand. Then the ring tempts you. So it saves something that got destroyed this turn. Yeah, maybe in some deck that has Coco, you'd want this because it would also return something that died. But it's definitely interesting. It's powerful enough that could be good. Saruman of many colors, 3 white, blue, black. And it has ward, discard, an enchantment, instant, or sorcery. So it's a bit hard to kill. And then whenever you cast your second spell each turn, each opponent mills 2 cards. Whenever 1 or more cards are milled this way, exile an enchantment, instant, or sorcery with equal or mana value than the spell that was, then the spell. Sorry, I'm losing my place here. So many words. I think we're listening then that spell. Okay, from the opponent's graveyard. So your second spell has to be an expensive spell. So that makes it a little bit hard to do. Copy the exiled card, you may cast a copy without paying its mana cost. So I think the idea is you cast this on turn 6, you hope they don't kill it. Then the next turn you do like opt plus counterspell or something, and if they tried to kill you and you countered it, then you might get to cast whatever they had to discard for the ward cost. Yeah. And otherwise you might just get something from them by milling their stuff, like milling their shocks or lightning bolts or things like that, and get to cast those anyway. So I think it's decent in a control deck, but we'll have to see if that ward is good enough to keep it alive. Alright, Saruman's Trickery. 1 blue blue, counter target spell, amass orcs 1. I think this is one of the more powerful 3 mana counter spells we've seen, in at least from his coming from standard. There was also Archmage Charm, which is really good, so it's definitely not an Archmage Charm. But it's probably on similar power level to the Absorb, which was like a blue blue white, I believe, and gained you 3 life. So getting a 1/1 token might be equal to 3 life ish. So seems decent. Sauron, the Dark Lord, 3 blue black red, similar to the Saruman, but whenever you cast a spell, amass orcs 1. So that's pretty easy to do. Opponent casts a spell, sorry. Whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you, so you get some extra abilities from that. And when it tempts you, you discard your hand and draw 4 cards. So it's a card engine, and the opponent doesn't want to cast spells because they give you a big army creature. So even killing this is going to give you some army stuff. So I think there's a shell that wants this. It's a little bit hard to kill, and it gives you lots of value. So sounds good. Shadow Summoning, a white and a black. This makes 2 tapped 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying. Might be the best token generator for 2 mana that we have in Historic. But white black might be tricky to fit in the right deck and a little bit hard to cast. So might not see play, but if there's some Orzhov deck that needs tokens, then this could be really good. Smite, the Deathless, 1 in a red. This deals 3 damage to target creature. It loses indestructible, and if that would die, exile it. Probably a sideboard card in red decks against the white aggressive decks, because they often have indestructible, and this would kill them. Stern Scolding. This is one of the best cards, if not the best card. 1 mana, instant counter target creature spell with power or toughness 2 or less. Okay. Maybe I'm overhyping it a little bit because it is creature spell only. But, you know, probably most, I'm trying to think about it, but I think most creatures that are played in Historic and definitely older formats are gonna have power of toughness 2 or less. So would be pretty powerful to have 1 mana counterspell that can stop most creatures in the format. I'll have to think about if it's gonna work in Historic, but it's good against wizards. Probably good against the like life gainy decks. Decent against elves. No, it's probably good against elves. And decent against goblins. Maybe. We'll have to see. Okay, this one, I know this is in Japanese, but I can just tell you what it does. So it's 3 and a blue. The first phase and second phase are draw 2 cards, then discard a card. And then the last one is put any number of cards from your graveyard shuffled into your library, and then you get 2 blue mana. So it's really good, like card cycling, card drawing, and then you also get a refund at the end of 2 mana. So what is that? Turn 4 you play, turn 5, turn 6. So turn 6 you're gonna get from 6 to 8 mana. I'm sure you could do something with that. It seems really good. I don't know. I'll have to see if I can fit this somewhere. Last one, or not last one, I don't know why I said that, but we're almost at the end. Theoden, King of Rohan, 1 red and a white. Whenever this card or another human enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gains double strike until end of turn. So yeah, it's a human, it's a red and a white, and it gives your stuff double strike. I don't know, seems like could be pretty good somewhere. Some sort of human deck. Elven Farsight, green mana, scry 3. You may reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature card, draw a card. So you want to scry to the creature and then draw it. Could be good in like a mono green or an elves deck. Don't know if it will see play. War of the Last Alliance, 3 and a white. Search your library for a legendary creature. Put it into your hand. So white card draw, basically. Actually, not even card draw. You get to search for whatever you want, which is crazy. Then creatures you control gain double strike till end of turn. Yeah, there's legendary soldier deck, maybe. I don't know. It seems pretty good. Witch King of Angmar, 3 and a black, 5/3 flying. Whenever one or more creatures dealt combat damage to you, each opponent sacrifices a creature that dealt combat damage to you, and then the ring tempts you. So basically, stops your opponent from attacking you because they lose all their creatures. Unless you're almost dead, then they might still swing in and lose their creatures. And then you can discard a card to make this indestructible. So you can block with this to prevent lethal, and then they have to sacrifice all their other stuff, and it's indestructible. So I think it could be really good as a top end in a control deck, especially if you want legendary creatures in your control deck. Definitely very, very interesting. Wizards Rockets, 1 mana, enters tapped, and then next turn you can use it for fixing, mana fixing of any amount. So 2 mana, 3 mana, whatever, it's X. And then you also draw a card when you sacrifice it. So 1 mana fixes your mana, draws you a card. Pretty good. All right, that's the end. So yes, that was a bit long, but we got through all the cards. So all of those seem like they have potential. I can see them in homes like Hammer Time, Elves, Goblins, Wizards, or some sort of control shell. So I don't know. There's probably less that are going to actually see play. So like I said, we'll have our top 10 list coming up either tomorrow or the next day. And I'll try to narrow it down to the ones that I think will definitely see play in Historic. And Alchemy is a little bit unknown, but we'll see about that. All right. Anyway, hope to see you there on June 16th. And until next time, see ya.